What's up, party people? We're here today for a fourth installment of our live stream feature review series. We're super excited to be here today. And it's your usual regular crew. Is there anyone in the chat, actually? Let's start with that. It's me, Margaret, Craig. Is anybody tuning in? Today, we are going to be covering Gaussian Splats.
Oh yeah.
Love a Gaussian splat. That was like the Kool-Aid commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Gaussian splats are a little bit very different than photogrammetry. And we're excited to share and discuss what Gaussian splats are, what they look like, how they're useful, and what possibilities lie ahead. So just to start out today, as people trickle in, we're just going to look at a couple of Gaussian splats and marvel a bit. So we have this lovely album put together showcasing a wide range of Gaussian splats. So the team threw this album together a couple days ago, and wow, as you can see, it is quite different than photogrammetry. Look at the detail on this very complicated subject.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Like, you can see.
That would be a cumbersome capture right there.
Indeed. It would be wobbly a little bit. Let's see, how do I navigate more through this?
I mean, you might even say that would be nearly impossible to capture with regular photogrammetry. I don't think so, but because it's shiny and because it has so many little thin poles and things making it up, it would be extremely difficult.
Yeah, I'm amazed
Totally.
by that.
And it would take so long in order to capture, like, if I can get close enough in, capture these bars right here. You'd have to really fit the camera in between these two bars and do a whole little 360 for almost every single one, roughly. And then get under. You'd have to be a kid, basically, and run through this entire set to get all this detail. So
and also with it being in direct sunlight, that would be a really extra challenge. Trying to avoid the glare or facing the camera directly towards the sun.
Absolutely.
Which is one thing, Gaussian splats can really help you out with, is like when the light is changing. It has this ability to capture like the nuances of light that meshes just can't.
Agreed. It feels very real, highly detailed, and it gives you a great sense of like space too, like beyond the subject. This person in their capture clearly wasn't focused on the trees here, but we get a sense of the entire space, like meters, like 400, 800 meters away from the subject. Just super exciting. Let's check out the details page. Drone slingers. So I'm guessing this was made with a drone.
Drones for splats. It's a special thing when a drone meets a splat.
A drone and a splat walk into a bar.
Literally.
And Polycam was formed.
So the splat is such an interesting name. Do you guys know what it's got to be an acronym for something, right?
Yes. It's got to be.
I know that the individual little points, they're called Gaussians. That's what.
I think,
which is a term I do know from Photoshop.
Yeah, I believe it's a gradient of some kind.
Yeah, it's like an even fall off gradient, I think.
And so, wow, this is crazy. I just meant to click into this in order to show off a gradient. But these, you see all these like smears, all these ovals. Each of these, I think, is a Gaussian, and
Mm-hmm.
within it, there's a Gaussian gradient. And up close, it's abstract and doesn't look like anything. Kind of like getting really, really close to a impressionist painting. But then when you back up and see the forest for the trees, and also, oh no, I'm stuck. Oh no.
Yeah, that happens because I think it's
There we go.
raycasting onto the nearest point. And so then if you're really
Oh.
in close to like if you're in the weeds, it's going to be hard to pull yourself out. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this is a good example. So the splats get more obvious and abstract the further the more the further away the representation is from the input media. Yep, so each of these is a little splat. And when you zoom way, way out, you get a comprehensive image. And I always thought this was a really new and modern and revolutionary concept and method. But apparently, Craig informed me earlier that this was created in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm. The 1990s. Yeah. It's only I think within the past 3 or 4 years that it started being developed by a Google research lab to make it a real-time rendering like capability within these Gaussian splats.
Oh.
But the ideas have been around for a little bit. And essentially what it is, it's a point cloud, and that's kind of the basis for all of photogrammetry. Even mesh-based photogrammetry starts with a point cloud, and then you're drawing triangles in between that. But each of these points now have they have a x, y, z location coordinates, which positions it in a 3D space, and an RGB color. And I think with Gaussian splats, you have opacity, you have this property called spherical harmonics, which says, okay, the point has this orientation in 3D space, and if I'm looking at it from this area, it's going to give one color, and if I'm looking at it from another area, it's going to give another color. So like spherical harmonics, it's a equation or like a coefficient that helps divide the surface of a sphere, and each point has like a scale value and like a, how would you say, it's kind of like it's other values that tell it how much it's going to be stretched or squished, and it's like all these little pieces of data that are kind of plugged into a regular point cloud that makes this possible. I'm not like a super expert, but like it's pretty interesting.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
It's hard to discuss in words without like a robust background knowledge on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, in my preliminary research, it was put to me that like each splat contains position, color, shape, and orientation information, and then that's
Mm-hmm.
somehow like triangulated to create the overall representation.
Mm-hmm. And so every splat is going to have these fuzzy edges, right? Or every Gaussian has a blurry kind of fade on it. That's correct, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe we can check out a couple more splats. This is interesting. Okay, folks who are tuning into the chat, I'm realizing that we're going live to a different link than the one that was shared. But we are here now, so we will continue. Okay. So this was captured, yeah, with a drone, not by this creator. And this took 431 frames. It's always helpful to return to this details panel to get an idea of how much effort went into capturing something, the thing that you see. It's surprising to see. It's kind of like the ultimate reveal, like how many frames did it take? Because there's a lot of factors that go into creating a good splat, like lighting, resolution, angles. That's a big one, getting the appropriate angles. So with something like this, I don't know, this could be a drone capture, depending on the size of this.
Yeah, it must be because they're getting the top of
Structure.
that chimney there.
Oh yeah, that's some details at the top here. Let's see. Let's do the reveal. 91 frames. Doesn't say if it was a drone capture, but it can still be a drone capture even if it isn't logged as such. But in my experience flying a drone, with some folks on the team, the best way to get this capture would be to fly the drone in essentially like three different orbits at different latitudes, at different heights, to get the most information about the structure from all of the angles. Keeping those captures slow and seamless, and not pausing the video or taking a new frame at a drastically different angle. When that happens, there's a lot of lost information. This would be broken in some way.
Yeah, so you want at least 70% of one frame of the subject that's in one frame to overlap into the next frame.
Yeah, that's a great metric.
Wow, look at that. Is that a real? Is that that's not a real ship, is it?
I think
it's at a museum in Stockholm with the giant ship in it.
I think it might be. This was taken in Amsterdam.
Oh, close.
Yeah.
How many photos?
293. And it was processed on RAW, which makes sense for getting a lot of that detail. Experimenting with the advanced settings in processing while you're configuring processing options is really great. Not everyone needs this much detail and information, and not everyone wants to pay the cost and time to get that detail and information. Sometimes it takes up to like 40 to 50 minutes to process on RAW, depending on your Wi-Fi connection and various factors. But as you can see, like if you want a lot of detail, the results are worth it. Like this is almost even more impressive than the playground.
Oh, definitely.
Wow.
I mean, it's getting ropes and all the smallest details of it.
Yeah. So say you were a ship collector and wanted to buy a miniature ship. Do you think this is a miniature, y'all?
It's hard to say. It really is. I mean,
it's such detail on the little. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
We could try to measure it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But depending
Oh,
if it was captured with like a drone or some other type of equipment, like a DSLR or something,
Right. That's true.
yeah, it
We
would
get a
have an
little
indirect
notification.
scale. Mm-hmm.
That's good to know. It's nice that we're notified about that. We got this nice snapping mechanism with the measuring tools. So it could be a large miniature.
so at what point does it
Yeah.
stop being a miniature?
Taxonomy is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we might have to contact this and we can rescale it. We can turn it into a miniature or a full-size boat. Let's actually try that. So let's do a little rescale moment. Okay. Do we have to measure first before rescaling? Okay.
It's a miniature, Arturo. That's funny.
Hello.
Very clever.
And what's the size of a real? No, I don't want this to load endlessly on screen. Maybe we could turn it into a miniature. What's the size of a regular miniature? Like your average?
Like a ship in a bottle.
Yeah, like 40. No, those meters. Maybe like 40 centimeters. Do I know metric?
40 centimeters is pretty
20
small for a ship like that.
Google says 20 millimeters.
Oh, okay. 20 millimeters? We don't even do millimeters.
Ron, I doubt corporate is concerned with an old wooden ship.
All right, moving on from the ship. Say you were a civil engineer or
or
a
just
builder.
a general tube guy.
Yeah, you were a tube guy. And you're like,
yeah. I'll stop there.
Something's happening with these tubes, and I don't know what. And you've taken a couple of pictures. It's like really dark. You can't get all the angles, and the contractors that you're working with are like, we can't see this thing. We don't know what's going on because there's not enough information, and we're not there. You could easily send this to them, and lots of people do that. Yeah. So
and note how it's like that's an extremely reflective surface otherwise. That like if you tried to capture that with LiDAR, you'd have a lot of issues with the reflection and transparency and things like that. So perfect. I mean, I presume it's not gray. It's like, it's like a metal. Right? Yeah. Super cool.
That's a really good point, Margaret. Yeah, this is not something that would look very clean, like in terms of all these divots and angles and little bolts with a LiDAR scan. You could probably get something akin with a photogrammetry capture, but it would take a lot of time to get something of this fidelity in photogrammetry, which is why Gaussian Splats are offered by Polycam, which is why Gaussian Splats are so useful.
And experience, I would say, like it's just much more forgiving to have a Gaussian splat come out well than something like this where you would want to make sure that you've covered all the angles underneath the pipes and around all the pipes. Let's pop over to my screen. I have this cool climber.
Ooh.
First of all, you can tell that this was not captured on a phone because it is very tilted. Yeah. But we can rotate that. You'll see how well we do with this rotation. Wow. Not really. Let's see. That tree looks. Or we could. Let's see.
That is crazy.
I guess we could go off.
God, I gotta go to the gym.
I mean, how they did this, I have no idea.
How do you
outside?
Is he holding? He's hanging, or is he?
Yeah, he's hanging. He's like mid climb. I'm just gonna go there. I think maybe I over rotated it, but that's okay. We want to get in and look at it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, this is capturing the climbing rope and everything in movement. So if we look at the details, they wrote something. German top climber Alex Magos performs the most iconic move in climbing, the jump and swing in action directe, one of the most famous climbing routes. Shot on a Canon 75 Canon 2000D bullet time setup.
Wow. Have
fun exploring. Cheers. And then there's a shout out to LarsCharlesPhoto.com.
Wow.
Very cool.
You best believe I'm going to LarsCharlesPhoto.com.
Yeah, I mean, I would go and try to see what their setup was. I imagine they had some kind of camera rig, maybe like suspended between two trees or something, because you have to move a camera really quickly across.
Oh my gosh! Actually, here, if you click really quick to my screen, you can see. Oh, sorry. I'm going to show that next. Spoiler. Hold on. Let me share this tab. And then you share this tab. I've got our tour. Yeah, see?
Oh, look at that.
Because that must be, one of the images in the set, I presume. But that's just crazy. And then if you go back to the splat, it's like that, but brought into 3D. Oh, so cool.
Yeah, they probably have multiple cameras, right? Would be.
They could, multiple cameras, or like maybe a robotic arm moving extremely fast. But probably, I think bullet time means like how they did the Matrix, where they had a lot of cameras set up on a.
Oh, I see.
On a track or in a hemisphere type of shape.
Yeah, and they also have that nice spotlight going, which adds to the drama of already such a epic and dramatic shot.
Yeah. You can typically kind of figure out where the cameras were by looking for where you don't have detail, or where the detail kind of gets. But it's actually pretty hard to tell here. They must have had I don't know. Maybe they had two sets of camera rigs, one on one side and one on the other. It's hard to say. Anyway, super cool.
I'm trying to find my way around this splat to show y'all, but I just need to. It's loading strangely. Okay, so if you pivot to me, this was. You just reminded me that we had. I don't know why my computer has quite a few things open right now, so it's getting a little.
Oh, when you get into the splats, it gets the dollying, or the dolly zoom of the camera gets really slow.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Okay, it loaded me really like in media res there. But this this user uploaded all of these like 360 kind of photo booth images from the 2009 MTV Video Awards. And it's so crazy because it's such a moment. I mean, look at this. It's such a moment in time, and it's so crazy photo real. Like that's Anna Faris, just like
that's so iconic. I love going through these when I'm sad or feeling down.
Yeah. And it's funny because they kind of went viral on our app. Like the Megan Fox one has like more likes than I think any other splat. And like this Quest crew, like this is so crazy.
I love it when motion is paired with these like cage setups. There was a collaboration Polycam did, I think when Wyatt was here, with a portrait studio or some kind of studio, and the project was to introduce like intentional motion blur into Gaussian Splats, because there was a cage, like multiple cameras available to use. It's like there's so many ways to creatively use a Gaussian Splat. It's not only such a useful tool, but also just an amazing creative tool.
Yeah, I believe it was an artist named Dickie Chalmers. I might be able to pull up the splats you're talking about. But
Yeah, let me
he was
check.
doing these like motion studies somewhere. I have
Somewhere over
somewhere
there.
in my Google Drive, somewhere on the Explore page, there's a splat.
So many splats.
It's a movement study, and the guy is in a hat.
Crowd goes wild.
Crowd goes mild. That's what my brother likes to say. I have up this little presentation that I can share with y'all, that I can kind of walk my way through. Hold on, share this tab instead. Sorry. So it's no secret, but within our team at Polycam, we have some people with some real big brains. One of them is our head of CVE, Mark Deachin, who's a PhD in mechanical engineering. He is just the guy. And oftentimes we have these like, we are fortunate as a team that like every 6 months when we get together in person, Mark often gives like a presentation about like best practices of scanning from a really, really like technical lens. So he'll tell us like, here's the best, camera to use. Here's the best, like if you're uploading, here's the best drone to use. And then best way to walk around an object, whatever. So I pulled some of the slides from his presentation. He's just got some cool GIFs in here so you can see. But I love these comparisons. Hopefully they load fine. Yeah. So in these next few slides, he shows basically a scan that gets progressively worse when you introduce blur into the input image. And so because of this, a lot of people will create splats from video because you just have like kind of a continuous frame rate happening. But when you use images and you go too quickly, you can accidentally add a blurry image. And so we see on the left side as a blur sort of progresses, both the splat and the mesh have a really hard time remedying that like input image. And then at a certain point, the mesh will still try, but a splat will almost fail completely because you have no density to the point cloud. You have no kind of like clear, like basically if you imagine, how would I say this? Like pouring a bunch of salt on a table. And if you compress the salt together, you could probably form like an object. But if the salt was really spread apart, you couldn't really create an image. And so that's what happens when the point clouds can't like attach to anything in space. It just becomes really blurry. So here's like a good version of an input image without blur, which is really cool. And you'll see even in this model where on the plane, the lines are failing to form on the mesh, and they're even getting very warped on the table. But with a splat, it forms really coherently. You have really obvious lines, and the table like is in perfect condition. So really cool. A couple other things he's got in here. The other thing with blur is that it'll give you these sort of like rogue, these stray Gaussians. So it's similar where the point cloud is kind of failing to attach to something. You have these like flyaways that you don't have so much when you have clear input images. So pretty cool.
And so the reconstruction process is analyzing these photos, and it attaches to an area where there's a clear contrast, right, between color or light and shadow.
Yeah.
And that's why if it's blurry, it's not able to grab anywhere specifically, and it's just kind of, as you said, spreading out.
Yeah, it's just sort of like floating in space. And each one of these little like kind of moments that look like sort of like paintbrushes, those are the Gaussians. Essentially, like when they're compressed together, they create the image, but they're just like, in Photoshop, when you add like a Gaussian blur, you're adding like a blur with a sort of like a little.
I love that you're calling them moments.
These moments. I'm doing the Apple dance. I'm like, when you have these Gaussians. Okay, so a couple more slides. So these are the input images for the highest quality splat that we saw with the plane there. So tips that y'all probably know at this point very well, which is circle around the object at different heights instead of just one height if you can. Often with splats, like you're doing exterior spaces. So, it's hard to get on top of a building, but if you have a drone, circle it at a lower level, circle it a little bit higher, circle at the top. You want to get kind of recreate this this captured map with a drone.
So what are the green pyramids represent?
Those are the moments where the image was captured, the input image. So Polycam does this. This is what it looks like in the app. Actually, I think it's just when you'll see this. I don't know if it's in this slide deck, but if you use Polycam a lot, you know that when you process, you see this, like, it almost looks like sort of a temperature map of the model as it's forming in when you do photo mode. And so you'll see this green map start to form, and the engineers made like a really cool little animation that happens when your image is processing, where it shows you the map or the footage that you've taken. So yeah, those are the places where the image was captured. And then he mapped it really nicely to the output. Oh, we have a question in the chat.
So Ghost, the comment went away. Where is it? What's the question?
It's up on the top of the,
Hello, the new software is amazing. Mapping out rooms will come in handy for forensics, detailing physical areas of rooms and areas. From Ghost Ire Paranormal. Thanks for commenting. That's so true. Like, there's so much detail that can be captured in Gaussian Splats. It's incredible. And especially useful for, really, really difficult, complex subjects. Maybe not difficult, but complex subjects.
I think sometimes when you want just more, if you want more precision in like a surface, you may want to do photogrammetry to get a mesh. Or if you're doing like most VFX pipelines where you need physics, or you need to change the lighting, or these types of things, that's where you're going to want to do photogrammetry or LiDAR. But what's great with Gaussian splatting is it just picks up as much as it can from all the information that it's pulling in, and it's going to try to include everything that it's catching in the background, even if it's just a little bit low res or far away. It's going to recreate an impression of that element. So it's a bit more just immersive when you're looking at it. You might not see every leaf of the tree, but you're going to see a tree.
It's really cool too, because it will use I think it uses, like, probably, God, I need somebody more technical than me to correct me if I'm wrong, but like for really further distances, it'll like fill in the gaps by picking like colors, like an infill sort of situation, right? Or no?
Check out.
There's like a subdivision kind of process happening where if it's a big Gaussian, it'll try to split it into smaller Gaussians, and it kind of refines itself that way. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're mentioning, but
yes. Well, yeah. Help me, Ellie. Pull up your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see what's happening here? I think this one's a really good example. Like, look at all of this.
So crazy.
It's clearly not really a part of the capture, but it was intuited
so far away
from just the way the methodology of like a Gaussian splat. So that's sometimes really, really nice information to have.
And I believe the way that Polycam is processing these captures is going to give you this sort of inner area here. Like, you can see quite well. You get this like city street and some of the trees surrounding. And then what we do is we'll kind of push some of the really far background elements out a little bit. So that way you're dealing with a lot less of like these little floaty Gaussians everywhere.
Yeah.
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 These are really
Oh, look at the compliment in the chat. Thank you, Dex. Okay, so Dex says the new mock mesh while capturing in photo mode is also incredible, especially when you may have missed the side of something and didn't realize I'm back to photos instead of vids again. So Dex is talking about the AI assist, or the assist that comes with photo mode captures now, where it builds you a point cloud in real time as you're capturing to help you figure out like what you might need to photograph to fill in the model, which is awesome because, you know, there's so many. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm like back to me, but this is perfect with Mark's presentation. If you share my screen again, because
amazing.
he pulled together a perfect example of what happens when you miss certain things. So we see here what I was talking about before, which is kind of like the ideal image capture map for both a splat and a mesh. You can see how it created itself. And then as you start to create more sparse input images that are not aligned or, you know, few and far between like this, you see how the model suffers. And as you really continue to pare it back, you've got a ton of floaters. Floaters are what we call those sort of like splats in space, those little Gaussians. And then if you do the bare minimum, you end up with basically like splat and mesh soup. So having now the guide, AR guide, to help you kind of realize what areas you haven't covered and missed is so helpful to avoid something like this. And so you can see now in the bottom left, the input here is 6 images. This is 10 images. This is 20. This is 93. And with 93 images, that's not that many images, and we still have like an amazing model. So imagine what you can do. You know, you put in hundreds. And then this is also an argument for getting it from multiple angles or from multiple heights. We have perfect vision here at the top, but then as we go to the bottom, the chair starts to lose its legs and the structure. And I'm talking mostly here about the splat than the mesh, because that's just messy. But if you only capture from one side, you have perfect clarity on one side, and then it starts to go, ooh. And so this happens a lot because sometimes you want to take a splat of something. Let's say you're facing, I don't know, you're like facing the front of a house and you can't get to the back, so you only have one side. You are going to see, you know, it try to remedy itself in the back, but it's not going to look as clear as the other side.
Absolutely. And this is only going to improve over time. Like if you're a Polycam user out there, you may have experimented with the AI 3D model generator, and that takes a single frame input. So a single JPEG, a single PNG, or maybe it's just, I think it supports PNG. And an entire 3D model is reconstructed. You can check out our stream on that particular feature. It was really fun. We made a cheeseburger shoe. Margaret made a cheeseburger song. Is a hoot, and you should check it out.
We sure did. We sure did.
But all of that is to say, like, a whole model, a complete mesh, dynamic, detailed mesh was generated with a single input image. And these machine learning models, these algorithms are only going to improve and translate to other reconstructions, other capture types like Gaussian splats, photogrammetry. And we have an amazing computer vision team working on these really hard and exciting problems.
God, Mark is such a gift to the world and the rest of the CV team, because I'm like looking back through these slides and I'm like, this is such an amazing illustration of how to best use the product. Like he has tips for, you know, in tight spaces, you want to probably use 0.5 zoom, which makes total sense. And I love this tip also to capture blind input images. So if you pop back to my screen really quick, you can see like if you're inside of a plant, there are going to be like areas maybe that you don't know what you're taking a picture of, but you know, you got to get in there. And, you know, as long as you just sort of try to capture as many sides as you can, it's okay if, you know, you're not really sure what the photo looks like until you're processing it. And then here's another illustration of like capturing in a tight space using just 0.5 zoom, which most iPhones, I believe, have now. So it looks like he was in like a museum or something and had to, take a photo of the spas. And this is also a crazy one. Capturing in tight spaces, contort your body as a tip is a really funny. But this GIF is a little is a little bit of a nauseating GIF. But I think that what he did was
warm up with Twister.
Yeah, I'm like I don't even know what's happening here. So, this is so fun. Capturing from an airplane is something that you can do with photogrammetry. And look at the input image map of just a straight line of him traveling through space. So this works incredibly well, surprisingly, from an airplane, but not as a splat. There are just way too many points of view. It's just a straight line input. That's obviously not great. And you have a gazillion floaters. So
it's probably a little blurry through the airplane window and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, we have a question from Ghost. Does the LiDAR be affected by air currents? I know it might sound unusual question, but just thinking about the way lasers go in and out, especially with drone footage. Well, so that's a good question. I don't know the answer to whether or not a LiDAR capture is affected by wind. I wouldn't think so. But when it comes to Polycam, the only LiDAR sensor that Polycam currently supports is a iOS LiDAR sensor. So folks who are using drone footage or drone images as input are using the photogrammetry and Gaussian splat capture modes. So they're not using the LiDAR sensor at all. Yeah, do you guys know the answer to air and LiDAR?
I would back up what you're saying. With the LiDAR sensor on the phone, I don't think you're going to be capturing. I don't think it has the power to capture from far enough away where air current or like environmental elements like that would affect the results that you're getting.
Yeah, my very high level understanding is that a bunch of light is being shot out from your phone, and then it's bounced off of various surfaces, and then that distance is measured and computed, and then that's how the reconstruction happens. And I don't know if the LiDAR itself actually bounces off of wind.
We could go maybe we could go into a sauna, because I'm thinking about like what if it's a really high intensity heat. Like these are interesting questions.
Wow.
They might sound silly to other people, but I will have to look this up.
Yeah. Steam can be captured in interesting ways with Gaussian splatting. Any sort of like dynamic, non-solid subject.
We should have drone splatted the white smoke coming out of the Vatican today.
I have a splat of some smoke right now. It's
Do
from
you?
a fire. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh
what?
wow.
Whoa, yeah. This is an amazing example. Oh, live streams are great.
Incredible.
You just pull it up and show
I know, yeah, we're just like, wow, great question. I love having people ask questions. It really it's things we just don't think about. It's really cool. Wow. This is amazing. It's got to be obviously a drone situation.
It's definitely a drone, and it's sadly it's a fire that I think happened at a marina. That's what I'm getting from the title. And you can see that over here, I mean, they're not going to fly their drone through the smoke. But you can really get a lot of like volumetric changes in the lighting happening here.
Yeah.
As you can see, this is the demonstration of what spherical harmonics are doing with the Gaussian splat. These are the same little Gaussians, but if you're looking at it from this side, it's bluish gray, and then when you come over here, changing your point of view, it's going to turn to an orange, and maybe back to another
Mhm.
Yes, yes,
Theta
spherical
squared.
harmonics, yes.
I just love saying it.
It's fun to say, no
It's
doubt.
so
It
fun.
feels right. It feels like what's going on. Like
Mhm.
it's dynamic. The light is changing as you move through the capture.
Mhm.
Well, maybe not the light is changing, but as we perceive the light, it's changing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's super epic. Even the light off the water too changes.
Yeah.
The mesh of this would be horrible. Yeah, 100% Dexter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The mesh wouldn't. Yeah, it would be a smear. Maybe not.
It's
Maybe not over
so
here.
funny.
Oh, I mean,
Wow.
yeah.
The perfect use case for a Gaussian splat. Going back to the topic of the hour, like when to use a Gaussian splat. When does one use a Gaussian splat? When does one use a LiDAR capture? When does one use photogrammetry? When does one use a 3D model generator?
Mhm.
As we come out with more and more tools, these are important questions to ask before you embark on your project. Polycam is hosting a Gaussian splat portrait photographer workshop at the end of this month. And so it's going to be really exciting to get some humans captured in Gaussian splat glory with full professional lighting.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gaussian splats definitely work a lot better than meshes do for capturing a human face.
We have an interesting question on the chat from Patrick, who says clearly there's a gap between Gaussian splatting and AI generative video that will one day close up. Do you know if anybody's working on this yet? Feels like that's Luma's endgame. What do you think? Well, on our live stream, I suppose we won't comment on the work of others, but at least what I can say within our within Polycam, we don't do any generative video stuff. I think just kind of off the cuff, Patrick, as a response, I think there are places where Gaussian splatting is already being used as kind of like a set design, like a virtual set design. So if we go, let me find a really good cool example of a splat for you. Like imagine it as a backdrop to like other models in a space, if that makes any sense. Let me see, because right now a point cloud is not a manipulatable 3D
Right.
object, right? It's just
I have a
backdrop.
I have a quick
so.
example to show for that. It's not exactly in line with a super
Ooh, oh yeah.
special effects pipeline. I'm working on. Okay, yeah, let's save that. I made this like hand-drawn animation, and I'm putting it to a Gaussian splat.
Oh, this is so fun, Craig. I love this.
Craig is such a witch sometimes in the best way.
This is so fun.
So I'm
Wow.
just this is a plugin for After Effects. It costs about like $48 or $49, $50 basically. And then you can bring Gaussian splats in and render them in real time. So this is basically just a hand-drawn animation, and in the background is the Gaussian splat that I'm using. So yeah, like you were saying, Margaret, you can just use it as realistic background. I'm not sure if people are using it for lighting right now or not. But that could be one interesting use case, is for kind of like using it like an HDRI. I'm sure people are doing it. The thing is, in Blender, which is what I use predominantly, the Gaussian splat add-ons are more cumbersome because it's creating. Most of them are creating a bunch of geometry to to basically draw like a Gaussian on, and then billboarding that to wherever the camera is positioned. So every time you move the position of the camera, you're moving however many Gaussians there are, which typically there's like 1 million or more. So when that turns into geometry, it gets very heavy very quickly.
Right.
But I think in Unreal Engine and in programs like Unity, their how would you say, their engines are just built a little bit more condusively towards rendering Gaussian splats.
Yeah, I think Gaussian splats are actually a Gaussian splat is actually a rendering technique,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's not easily portable, because as you take it out of Polycam and bring it into other software, like it needs to be rendered in a way that matches what you saw in Polycam. So Polycam is doing a specific type of rendering, and then when you bring it into Blender, it's necessary to use third-party plugins to view it again in the same Gaussian splat glory.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, I think, a point of confusion. Like some folks will export a Gaussian splat and expect it to be a mesh, or expect all the colors to look similar in the point cloud format. But a lot of people are doing this good work of building plugins for various software. Like Patrick Weir asks, we have tried using it on our Volume Studio with a tracked camera, but the available plugins for Unreal Engine don't allow high enough detail to sell it as real yet.
Yeah, I've seen some really incredible like video work used with point clouds and splats. My friend Tom is an example. I've got an image pulled up on my screen, but he builds these like virtual worlds and sets with point cloud data. And
wow, those are beautiful.
He's different. He's just so incredibly talented, but he builds these, and it's meant to be registered as like an Unreal space, right? So it's kind of
real.
Yeah, it's just like a weird, but this is all point cloud data, kind of manipulated in Unity and Blender. And I imagine like something like this can be done with splats. It's also point cloud data, right? But it's a really specific type of filmmaking where it's a little bit scary looking at it, but
Yeah.
super cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very haunted.
Very haunted. Yeah, he's great.
Well, I have a microphone and a camera, I'll postulate a little bit. I believe, and y'all tell me what you think in the chat, and also Craig and Margaret. Like, I think there's going to be a convergence of like 3D like tools that are traditionally used for like architects, engineers designing, and like more complex visualization systems. So like I feel like we're already seeing the overlap of people who use Rhino, use Blender, use AutoCAD, getting into Unity and Unreal. Like what if the engineer and the designer can work in a single shared sort of workflow or program or software where everyone has what they need. Yeah, what does that look like?
Whoa. Girl, whoa. It's the end of the stream and you're posing questions like that.
I have questions.
It's like an AI butler who takes things from one program to another, I imagine. Because that's the toughest thing, is like taking data from one architecture and translating it into another. And I mean, even if you're just doing 3D stuff and you want to texture paint it, it's a whole process. So, I mean, someone's got to be thinking about that and working on it.
Totally.
Yeah. I never thought about that. That's so cool to imagine.
Yeah, like the Figma the Figma of creative everything. NVIDIA Omniverse. Yeah. For the question in the chat from Dex Durden about displaying splats in the real world, I love this question because I feel like people on the call could answer it in a way, but also I just really relate to this. I've always considered my captures as modern family photos. We have photo frames and photo albums. Is there something that's comparable for captures? Great question. And I wonder, with those of you who know more, is a looking glass something that could do like a physical splat in real life, or no?
Yeah. A looking glass display. So for those who don't know, a looking glass is a digital lenticular display. It's a holographic display. And it basically shows you an image in 3D. It's a special type of screen, a unique kind of hardware that lets you perceive depth in a way that you wouldn't normally on your standard LED screen. And it takes input, like it takes Gaussian Splats as an input, it takes RGBD as an input, quilts as an input. So yeah, that's very possible to use a looking glass to fully experience the power of 3D Gaussian splatting and, I don't know, high-tech family portraiture.
Well, because there's also this idea that you can when you have a mesh, when you have a photogrammetry model, you can 3D print it. But like, what would be the equivalent of like, you couldn't really print a splat into space.
Yeah.
So, but there are ways. I don't know if we covered this yet. There are ways to convert a splat into a mesh in Blender, right? Or a point cloud into a mesh as well.
You mean a mesh into a splat in Blender?
Wait. What do I mean? No, I think you can take a splat and then turn it into a mesh. No?
You could take a. I mean, yeah, you would lose a lot of quality going.
You totally, yeah.
You would lose a lot of quality.
Mm-hmm.
You could do maybe a photogrammetry of a splat, and then you would get a mesh. Or in Blender, you can recreate the photogrammetry principles and render a camera orbit around a mesh, and then load that into Polycam, and then get a splat from that. There are definitely there's examples of that on Explore, people doing that with video games and certain sections from movies. People are trying to do it in the scene in the Titanic where Jack is like, and Rose are on the front of the ship, and then there's like that pan across. I saw someone trying to do it, but the splats didn't work out.
I tried to do it, God, so early. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I tried really early on to do it with, I probably deleted it because it's so bad, with the bullet scene from The Matrix. Because technically it's like a 360 capture. Oh, here's a fun splat that I took once. My computer's about to die and I'm like pulling up the splat. That's going to help. But this was like,
there? What?
This it looks like space, doesn't it? That was the whole point. But this is crazy. I must have missed this. But yeah, this is 2 hours outside of LA. It's someplace. But yeah, I tried to do the Neo Matrix thing, but the input, it was way too blurry, because anything I could find online was like kind of a lower quality. Yeah. I don't think I have it here, but back in the day, this is a cool example. Wait, when I went to Marfa, this is like an entirely metallic statue that like rendered really beautifully as a splat. So once again, perfect for something like reflective and metallic.
Yeah, that's
this is
awesome.
this is at Ballroom Marfa, which is like a little gallery. But yeah,
very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
and this is when I ran into Jay Leno.
Whoa.
Yeah, at the gas station, and I took a splat of his car.
What a ride.
Did he notice you walking around it?
I'm sure he did, which is why the splat is not very good, because I didn't get, any of this angle. But
he's probably used to that.
Well, because there was like this woman was also taking a but this was in Burbank, and I literally was like, Mr. Leno, do you mind if I splat your car? He was like, what?
What words?
Like, no, you can't.
I didn't ask permission, man. It's LA, baby. Everybody taking pictures of everyone.
Yeah. Right.
That's so epic. On that note, I think it's time. Thank you everyone for joining us in the chat as we covered Gaussian Splats today. Next week, we'll have another live stream on a feature currently undisclosed, but that information will be posted on Discord and Reddit. If you have projects you want to share, want to continue this conversation, Discord and Reddit is a great place to do that. We have a growing Discord of 1.6 1.6, now 1.7K folks. We're excited to see your projects. Yeah. Over there. Discord also has a nice, beautiful channel for showcasing your work, asking questions. And yeah, we really appreciate y'all joining. And thank you, Margs and Craig, for all the insight.
You are my people. I will
Thank
always
you, Ellie.
answer the call
let's
for a
all
live
thank each
stream.
other.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. Okay, everybody
Yeah.
say thank you to Ellie, and everybody say "Go Warriors, beat Minnesota."
Go Warriors on